Can can you hear us online?
Yeah, this is Amy. I can hear you.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, welcome everybody. It is 4:03 p.m. on August 20th, 2025, and this is the Heritage Preservation Commission of Flagstaff. We will start with roll call.
Emily Dale,
Present.
Alicia Hayes,
Present.
Bernadette Burcham, Jesse Dominguez,
Present.
Amy Horn,
Present.
Duffy Westheimer.
Present.
Thank you.
A real quick announcement for anyone here who is a member of the public hoping to speak today. Please fill out a comment card in the back so we can. I don't know why. Oh, yes, and then submit it to Nancy so we can call you in order. Thank you. And thank you for joining us. Do I have a volunteer to read the land acknowledgement this month?
I volunteer.
Thank you, Commissioner Hayes.
The Heritage Preservation Commission humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
All right, thank you. It is now time for the open call to the public. If any member of the public here or online would like to comment on an item not on the agenda, now is your chance to speak. First up, we have Gwen Groff. Do they still have to state their name when they? Yes, so please make sure that we can hear you in the microphone. State your name, and you have 3 minutes.
All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Gwen Groth, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Let me begin with a simple question. What does Flagstaff have that no other city in the world has? It's history. Right now, the history is at risk. The former city hall at Birch and Beaver is facing likely demolition, but it's not just a structure. It's the location of a pivotal 1972 protest led by the American Indian movement. It's a part of our civic history, our civic story, and a tangible piece of the movement for Indigenous rights, an example of architectural character that belongs uniquely to Flagstaff. Yes, it was initially deemed insignificant, but a revised cultural resource study done by this commission, and thank you very much, confirmed the building meets historic significance criteria at both the local and national levels. It retains key features from a time when local meant utilizing craftsmanship and materials from this very area. The local sourced Malpai stone connects us to our landscape and our civic pride. So why are we still talking about tearing it down? For one, we need a new, updated historic building survey. The current one is outdated and missing critical layers of our city's identity. How many more buildings will quietly disappear before we realize what we've lost? Let's be clear. People don't come to Flagstaff for chain hotels and oversized parking garages. They come for culture, for history, for something real, something timeless, and something quaint. And every time we allow destruction of an existing building, especially one with a civic past, we destroy what makes Flagstaff, Flagstaff. Instead of sending this building to the landfill, imagine the recognition Flagstaff could receive by creatively reusing its materials and incorporating its story into new construction. Adaptive reuse isn't preservation, it's progress with purpose. Flagstaff's historic downtown is slowly, quietly eroding and shrinking smaller. Are we going to be the generation that let our heritage slip away for another Hilton? Do you want that to be your legacy? Or are we all going to stand for the stories, the stone, and the heart of this city? Let's not lose what makes us unique. Let's preserve it boldly and proudly. Thank you, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much, Gwen, and I apologize for mispronouncing your last name. Next up, we have Ariana Urban. Ariana? Ariana. I have forgotten. I am so sorry. Yes, it does.
It doesn't matter, I respond to both, but thank you. My name's Ariana Urban. I live at 123 South Park Street, and I'm actually here in my official capacity as the Certified Local Government Coordinator. Hello, Chair Dale and members of the commission. I just wanted to give you guys a couple of updates as to what's going on in CLG land. We now do have our federal funding for 2025. So yeah, that was finally released to us, which means for you guys that we are going to be having certified local government grants available. So we're looking at up to about $20,000 in a match. We ask for a 40% match that can be done in staff time. So it doesn't necessarily have to be dollars. And we would love to help you guys with whatever sort of historic preservation planning, surveying, documentation projects you might need. I had one more thing to say. I forgot. That's too bad. Anyway, oh yeah, and as always, I'm available for any sort of trainings or in-depth discussions you guys might feel so inclined to have in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the update. Any other comments from the public on non-agenda items? All right, we will now move on to the approval of minutes. Any edits for the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the May meeting.
From the what? July 16th, 2025?
July 16th, when you weren't here, I was skipping.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Westheimer. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
And a second from Commissioner Hayes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes and the minutes are approved. We will now move on to our public hearing items, starting with 603 West Birch Avenue and a modification to the certificate of appropriateness that was previously approved.
All right, thank you. And Lauren Clementino, I am the Heritage Preservation Officer, and I will do a quick introduction, and then we do have Austin Posner, the designer, here to go over the new design with you and answer any questions. But several months ago, the commission approved the certificate of appropriateness for this project, and the ADU has been redesigned. So essentially, you're now looking to modify the existing certificate of appropriateness for the new design of the detached accessory dwelling unit. And it does include an updated footprint for the unit, as well as a new design and updated yard area square footage. And I did also note the previous condition of approval from the commission hasn't quite been completed yet. So in my recommended action, I included carrying on that previous condition of approval if the commission chooses to do so. And with that, I will invite Austin up if you want to go over the new design and answer any questions that you have.
Hello, I'm Austin Posner. Like Lauren said, we made some changes to the previous submittal. First and foremost, we had the existing structure reclassified as a single-family dwelling with an internal ADU. So that has been through the city planning process. The new design is slightly larger, still 800 square feet, and now has 2 bedrooms. The front entry now faces east towards Benito Street.
Yeah, can you pull the plans up?
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
sorry, I'll use it.
Thank you.
So everything's been here.
Yeah, so we pushed the ADU towards the back right corner of the lot, using the ADU setbacks that are allowed by the city, just to kind of give more space to the streetscape. Um, And then we also kept the general form of the previous design. Like I said, it's now a 2-bedroom, but it has new siding. And so we're proposing using a synthetic stucco siding, kind of in the spirit of the existing structure. It'll be a slightly like cleaner, more modern siding. It'll be painted the same color as the existing structure. We're also proposing Pella Impervia windows in the color black. The fascia will be a step fascia. That will also be black. And then the roof, that has not changed. That's going to be a shingle roof, a landmark, and charcoal black. And as stated in the previous submittal, we're removing an existing garage there. It's just kind of in an irreparable state. And when they updated the roof, or it's not the roof, the street elevation, it put the garage below the street elevation, so it's at risk of flooding now. So it's just kind of in a state of irreparable. And that's my spiel.
Questions or comments from commission?
I'm just curious, what do you mean when they say that they, was it raise the street elevation? Is that from a change in the curb or something that the city does?
Yeah,
just
they added a
curious.
sidewalk in that neighborhood, and now the existing garage is like a foot below that sidewalk, basically.
In the original certificate of appropriateness packet, some of the plan sheets from the city improvement project, I believe, were included to show how the grade had changed. And I will just note that the demolition was previously approved, so that is outside. This isn't included in the modification request because it's already a part of the existing certificate.
I was just curious if this is a problem that happens, that, you know, a historic building is there for so long and then the street gets modified and now it's below elevation and at a flood issue, so.
Commissioner Westheimer?
Yeah, I can explain also part of what happens is when the city resurfaces these streets. I've seen this happen many times. They grind at the curb. They don't grind in the center of the street, so the crown gets higher and that pushes all the water to the curb. And that eventually goes into our yards. So
Commissioner Dominguez?
And Lauren, you mentioned that there was a demo for the garage.
It was previously approved by the commission to demolish the garage. And
Thank
so
you.
there's no change to that in the scope of work.
Commissioner Westheimer?
I have another comment that the windows you chose are lovely and they are very, very similar to the historic structure. But in preservation of principle is that they should not match. It should be something different to show that that was not built at the same time. So you could go with something simpler to differentiate it from the historic house and possibly save some money.
I will note that those windows are replacements. I believe they are the same windows because they've already been replaced and they were approved through a separate project last fall before I was in this position.
That's correct, but they did match the original windows from older pictures. They had some old pictures that they were matching.
Yeah, we wanted to keep in like the spirit of the original design while giving it like a more modern look. We did choose a different color for the windows, so clearly it's going to stand out as a new building. But I think the clients are pretty satisfied with the window selection as is.
So just to summarize the changes from the original plan to this plan, it's in a different location on the lot.
Mhm.
The siding is different, but the shape and size or the same?
No, the shape size is different.
Oh, okay.
The general form of it's very similar, but in the previous iteration, the front door was facing Birch Street. And then we found that it'd be more advantageous. There's a opportunity for parking on Benito. That will be better for the ADU because it's double stacked. And then the Birch side will have parking for the single family dwelling and other ADU. So we just kind of felt it would create like a more separate like entry situation for every unit,
And the size?
800 square feet.
And what was it before?
I think it was 600.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it said in here it was like 719 and now it's going to be like 780 or something.
That's
like that.
correct. The
Yeah.
specific numbers are in the
It's
staff
yeah,
report.
so it's 785 internal.
So it's still below that 800.
Other questions and comments from staff or commission? Commissioner Horn? Her hand's not up.
No, I don't have any questions. Thanks for checking.
Anything? Are we ready for a motion?
I move to approve a modified certificate of appropriateness for the design of the new detached unit at, I've lost the address, 603 West Birch Avenue.
With the condition that,
I'd like to second.
wait just a second. Oh, discussion about the motion. The staff have provided a condition for us. If we wanted to include that.
I think I read the wrong recommended
Okay.
action, so I will start over.
Well, do we need to vote on this one?
Let me see. Do we get the procedures right? I think you can make a motion
Or you can amend
to
the,
amend your motion
Yes,
and then vote
vote on
on the
that.
motion as amended.
okay. Here, do
I
you want
would like to make a motion to amend my motion. All right, so I should take my glasses off when I'm trying to read the screen at this close. I move to approve a modified certificate of appropriateness for the new design of the detached accessory dwelling unit with the updated footprint and yard area square footage at 603 West Birch Avenue with the previous condition to reclassify the existing duplex of the parcel as a single-family dwelling unit with an interior accessory dwelling unit.
Can I get a second to amend the motion?
Yeah, I second the
The
amendment.
amended motion? Okay, and we have a second from Commissioner Horn. Then do we have to vote on to approve the amendment? Or do we just now vote on the
I think you vote to approve the amendment and then you vote on the amended
amended
motion.
okay.
It's like a
Yes,
sandwich.
it is.
right?
Yes. It's like those parentheses
Yes.
in math.
It's math parentheses,
Yeah.
exactly.
First outside, inside last. Okay. Can all those in favor of amending the motion?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. We will now vote on the amended motion. Motion, not emotion. All those in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, it passes. Congratulations on your modified certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you guys.
I'll try not to do that again.
It happens. We've done it before. We will now move on to 15 North Park Street and their modification to the certificate of appropriateness.
Hopefully we'll have to amend the application this time. All right, and so same, this is one that you reviewed twice last year and approved the certificate of appropriateness last fall, I believe in September, and now it is back for a new design. And this is the existing building is a triplex, multifamily 3-unit, and originally in the design you approved last year, there was an addition and one of the units was moving into the addition, and now that is going to be a detached unit with a new design. And there were, it's you will see in the staff report, there were several conditions of approval. And the one that I recommended carrying forward is you had requested that the interior yard requirements be demonstrated on all plan sets, and that they have done in the current plan set. And I recommended carrying that forward with the modified certificate. The previous previous conditions of approval, though, were specific to the third unit being an addition attached to the building. So, not destroying historic fabric while attaching it to the building and differentiating the materials of the addition, so that way it was clear what was the historic building and what was the new build, but now it is detached. So I did not feel that those are appropriate to carry forward. So I did not include those in my recommended action. And I believe we have representatives in person and online from UpDesign. I don't know. Yeah, Anne, do you want to come up and speak, or Aaron online? They can go over the new design, answer any questions you have, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up their application, which has all of your materials. Big one.
Yeah, Ann Mead, UpDesign. And we are back for a third round to entertain you guys with a value engineering exercise that we went through on this project. Basically, after getting the certificate of approval for the previous proposal, we went out to contractors, and this project came in at just shy of $1 million. So we went back to the drawing board. And we looked at it several different ways and decided that the most appropriate thing to do would just be to scale everything back. And one of the big aspects to that was detaching the unit. And in order to detach the unit, we had to conform to secondary structure guidelines for the town site, which is why the building is now a single story and in compliance with that 16-foot height limit. It is still going, we are still modifying the existing dwelling to absorb the little studio into the lower level unit, so that that existing structure will be reclassified from a triplex into a duplex, so that we are still proposing 3 units on the property, which it is zoned for. So again, you can see our rev clouds indicating there the removal of the bedroom that was previously attaching the 2 structures, and an expansion and kind of reconfiguration of that courtyard. Per Lauren's comment about the interior yard space, obviously with the detachment of the structures, that space grew. So I don't think that we have any problems there. We did, reevaluate the landscaping and the drainage through that area to make sure that everything was still working, and it is. So yeah, I think that, overall we reduced the footprint, we reduced the square footage, we reduced the height, we reduced any requirements for the compliance with the secretary's standards, since it is now detached. You can see that unit, those are the existing plans of the existing unit. So you can see that the little third unit there gets, the door goes away, and the access into the rest of the unit is reinstated. And then here you can see that the adjacent unit being proposed, and that was reduced from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom. Again, we kept it really simple, matched the 612 pitch of the existing house to make it appear compatible. We are proposing a material palette that emulates some of the existing character, but not all of it. We're just showing lap siding for the body, but we are showing the gable or the gable ends done in the shingle siding to match the existing structure. We were able to confirm the paint colors on the existing structure, so we'll match all of those. And yeah, so just basically stripped everything down, and now my client can afford to build it. So that's where we're at. Questions?
Yeah, questions or comments from commission? Well, I think this does answer some of the, oh, Lauren, did you have something you wanted to?
No, Sarah just suggested that now that we're not looking at the plans, I could make these photos look better or look bigger. Not better. Oh, they look great, but yeah, continue.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think this does answer some of our concerns when this first got brought to us about scale. I think it definitely is much more subservient to the house. I think it's in some of these drawings, you know, from the main street, because this is like the alley, right? From the main street, you can't see it. And I know that those were some of our biggest concerns, because this is a, you know, historic building that it was sort of overshadowing in some ways. So, yeah, so thanks for walking us through how the plan has changed. Other commission? So just the one thing we're missing from the plan is like the yardage, right? Because that's part of the, not the yardage, the actual yard space.
They included the requirement
Oh, okay.
as requested.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's there. That's just of the previous conditions for the certificate.
Oh, okay,
That's
but
the
they
only
have,
one that I felt still applied.
okay.
So I, you know, carried it forward to the modification. You can choose not to include it. It was provided.
Because I think that was another concern that commission had, was that it was then eating all the yard space and possibly not just, I don't know if it was out of compliance, but yeah.
Well, I like that this is, it doesn't diminish the original structure, that it is not really visible from the street. So I think this is an improvement. So I'd like to make a motion to approve a modified certificate of appropriateness for the design of the new detached unit with the previous conditions that: one, the interior yard requirements be demonstrated in all plan sets.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hayes. Do I have a second?
I second that.
And a second from Commissioner Horn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Third time's the charm.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to general business with the historic signs and facades grant tracking.
All right, no new applications this month to review. So the only change to the spreadsheet is just noting the approval from last month. So noting that the $10,000 grant for 123 South Beaver was approved. So that leaves the commission with $130,000 to award this fiscal year. So that's the update. And any questions about that?
Well, it looks like the previously approved grants are still are on track to get work done. So that's exciting to see as well.
Yeah, and as far as both the first two, the two in blue, they've you know, already sent in all of their financial paperwork, so that way once they're done, we'll just be able to do the inspection and get it moving quickly through that end of the process. So that's great. The opposite is this is the case with the one in yellow. That one is complete, and we're still just waiting to get what we need for reimbursement. So that one, several months ago, I reported that I'd done the inspection. So we're just waiting for I believe for the owner to pay the builder and then fill out the city vendor paperwork to get reimbursed.
And what is that property at 104 East Route
That's
66?
the lumberjack pizza where it was hit by the car and then they redid the canopy on the street.
Well, I drive by it on my way to work. It looks great now. So
It
they've done the
does,
work.
yes.
Does not look like it will harm any pedestrians this winter.
All right, other questions or comments on this item? All right, then we will move on to item 7B, the training request follow-up.
And this one was something that we talked about at the end of the last meeting, a request for training, and the commission requested that we resend the onboarding video resources and also provide some materials on what's required for different types of development review applications. And so we did provide that information and really just wanted to have a discussion today to see what additional questions or materials would need to be covered in a training, which we could potentially schedule next month, or we had written or October, although we have gotten 2 requests for staff, one staff and one outside presentation in October. So October may not be the best month, but, or we could set up a separate training date as we did in February. So yeah, just open it up to commissioner thoughts on additional questions, materials to cover in the training.
Well, thank you for sending that out because I printed off the items to bring with me, which, you know, it seems like that was a long time ago when I onboarded and I didn't really know what it was going to be like to be on the commission. And we do this for a few hours once a month. So it's really easy to forget with my day job. So this is very helpful now that it's fresh in my inbox, flagged and pinned. And thank you for the videos and reminders. I personally think any training is helpful. Any trainings we can have, even with, we're so lucky to have Ariana now in Flagstaff. If we could have more CLG trainings or something like that, I think it's really beneficial. If we, especially if, as we've talked about a little bit about trying to think about being a little proactive. I made note about her mention of the grants, and I am interested in what we can do to pursue something for inventory.
I think our big ask today is that the request was like that you felt you needed some additional training or refreshers. And so if Lauren were to put together like a little training plan for the next September, or maybe it's more than 1 month, given that you've now like refreshed on what the onboarding videos have, what would you like us to pull together for more in-depth on anything that we started off with in terms of your authorities and, you know, how to make different decisions and what different decisions mean? We're happy to pick any of those out and like really dive into details and scenarios. We just need to know which ones to bring. It is a lot. You know, it took us last time, what, 3 to 4 meetings to run through everything. So knowing what to pick out would be what we think would be most helpful.
I do think it still would be helpful to kind of go through the process in a way when it goes through how it goes from a concept and where we are in that process. Because if we're here as a commission and we're having a brief training, say at the end of an agenda, like we've done with some things, we can all ask together because we don't meet outside of here. And it's a chance for us all to kind of get an idea if we understand it.
So to clarify, training on the city's interdivision staff development review process and what those different things are. You mentioned like the concept plan versus a site plan. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I don't really understand all those different steps because it's a foreign world to me, especially, I mean, I have to look up a lot of times the ordinance and code and all that. It's all Greek. So, yeah, sort of that. What do those terms mean? Is that when you say those terms, you probably know immediately where that is in the process, and it's just confusing to me.
Other requests or suggestions from commission? Yeah, Commissioner Dominguez?
I'd like it to keep it simple. And I would like training from a resident or citizen's perspective. In other words, I come in the front door and I want to put a window in my 1901 house. What do I need to do and how it gets to you and then how it gets to us? I just want to keep it simple. I want to know the flow chart. I want to know what does John Q. Public have to go up against and what us, when it gets to us, you guys have already done all the hard work and some of the decision making or telling somebody no or yes. But I want to know how it works. Just keep it simple. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Yeah, I think flow chart. I'm a very visual person, so like sometimes things don't come to us and sometimes they do. And so I think from like a person's perspective, like they might not know why is this coming to the commission, but this other thing is not.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestions.
Other suggestions or recommendations?
Yeah, I listened to those early meetings earlier, which were before I was on the commission, and they were really interesting. One thing I noticed was that the chair at the time would make presentations to city council on the activities of the commission, which I don't know that Emily's ever done since I've been on here, and I'm wondering, I
No.
don't know that she wants to,
No.
but I'm wondering how frequently the council hears about historic preservation and what's going on and how much they know. I think they need to know a lot, and they need to understand what it means to be a certified local government, and I don't think they know. So I would like to understand how frequently they're hearing about historic preservation, and I would like to know if we could recommend a training with a CLG trainer to talk to city council about what it means to be a CLG, the opportunities,
Sure. Yeah, thank you. And Sarah, I think has other things to say. I will say, I mean, I frequently present to council, and most of which, I presented to council on historic preservation issues 3-4 times so far this year, and have reported those in this meeting. Most recently was about the Orpheum, which I reported in the last meeting. I also put his Preservation Month as a proclamation to council and invited the commission to attend. And I ended up just doing that with staff. We didn't have any commission attendance or participation in the proclamation, but that could be something next year. Commission can make it a point to be part of that conversation. But and other projects, we were just listed our first Flagstaff Register of Historic Places listing earlier this year. Did a lot of education with council at that point about the register. Sarah and I had quite a lengthy presentation kind of going through where the register lives in the code and explaining your authority and how you had forwarded that to them for their review and had to form the subcommittee, the standing subcommittee who reviews Flagstaff Register of Historic Places applications. So, so we're there fairly frequently. And of course, everyone is, Sarah could probably answer about the previous chair's reporting to the commission better than I can.
Yeah, there was a time 4 or 5 years ago where the council wanted quarterly reports from commissions. And so every quarter they invited 2 commission chairs. And remember, we have
19 commissions, I think, as a city. It's a lot, actually. Maybe we have too many is a definite discussion point at some point in the future, but 19 is a lot. And so they'd only get through about half of them in a year. So the idea was that you'd basically be in front of council every 2 years, roughly, to do a little quarterly presentation. I'm not sure they're doing that anymore. I feel like they went through a round where everyone presented and then they may not have asked to repeat it. And I think there was another instance where the chair at the time came because there was a decision that the commission had made, and he was there to answer questions on behalf of the commission. But and then we almost had an appeal once. But yeah, they get they are familiar with how to find the authorities for all the commissions, and of course they have regular discussions about the commission with the clerk's office because they're appointing you all. So I know that they all get, every time they are on the rotation for a Heritage Preservation Commission appointment, they might ask Lauren to verify if someone is a qualified professional or verify that they are a property owner of a historic property. Because, like, so for instance, Commissioner Dominguez, when he put in his application, listed his property, Lauren would have gone into the assessor's database and verified that it was a historic building and that he's a historic property owner, if she didn't already know that, but she might have at the time. But we do a lot of that work with council on the back end. They do not go through the same trainings you do as a commission unless they are getting an appeal, in which case we would go through and do some training ahead of them hearing an appeal. Or, maybe in an e-session, maybe by sending them the videos we sent all of you and say, here in preparation of your appeal is the training the commissioners get. And that's why we did them at a time where we felt we could make them lasting, and we make sure that they stay online and available because the code has not changed since those were made. And if we did have a big code change, then we would recreate the videos for everybody. But council, in terms of their hearing time, they have very full agendas. And so the time in their agendas is really important. So a lot of communication with them happens through mayor and council emails, reports or questions that they ask that we then distribute. And as we're going into election season, it's good. This was a good segue, Commissioner Westheimer, for a reminder. We also will start sharing information if there's a question. We share it not only with council, but everyone running for council once the list of candidates is approved. So we really start onboarding people much earlier than maybe is realized. So I hope that's maybe a window into like when we're interacting with council and the clerk and how we're helping them understand.
Are you following up on this? Yes, go ahead, Commissioner West, and then Commissioner Horn.
So I understand about their time. I understand all of that, but as being a certified local government, aren't they the ultimately responsible party for what happens here? And I think when I have talked to a council person about historic preservation, they don't know what that means. And I think as the ultimately responsible parties, and I get that they change all the time. It must be very hard as staff. But I think that they need to understand what the requirements are as a certified local government and what the benefits are.
And I would say in our agreement with the State Parks Board to be a CLG, it's SHPO that is supervising us essentially. It's a CLG through reporting, other things. There is a formal process there. It is true that City Council is the appeal body for your decisions. If someone wanted to appeal Heritage Preservation Commission decision, they would do that to City Council. But in terms of the CLG, they're not like the review body. That would be the State Historic Preservation Office.
Yeah, I think that's important because like right now, because we have a case that's getting attention in the community, people are emailing mayor and council right now and saying, council, don't make this decision. Council has delegated that decision-making authority to you. There is a formal ordinance that says this body is making these decisions on behalf of council. So it is important they know who you are and what you're doing overall, but you've been delegated this decision authority, and it's only when it is appealed that council then gets briefed and caught up and then has to hear the appeal. And of course, like all appeals, they have to
make the appeal on the fact finding and the record, just like they would with any other appeal from planning and zoning, or I forget what other, maybe Board of Adjustments might also appeal to them, or maybe they go to the court. I can't remember. I'll have to look. But that's all laid out in the zoning code. It's laid out in your authority. So we're happy if council members have questions, or if there's something that needs to go on a work session, like the Orpheum, or, like the case of adding the property on LaRue to the register. But that is generally how we have done it. Council has to, either council or the city manager kind of request us to show up unless we have business for council.
One more comment from Commissioner Westheimer.
I think we can lose our certified local government standing. So shouldn't those ultimately responsible council understand the benefits to make sure that things are going right?
I'm confused as to what you think council has done or not done recently to change our certified local government status. I mean, we have an agreement. It's written out. It tells us what we have to do. And it actually, and then the authorities are delegated from council. So I guess I'm confused. I don't know what you're asking.
A conversation for another time. So we
Yeah,
can move on.
maybe we need to have that offline. But yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, we are following the agreement. And that's if you would like a training or a review of the CLG agreement that we have signed, that's certainly maybe something we could go over and then ask that. I'm not as familiar with it as I am with all of the code. So we could do that.
That would be great.
Biggest things are in the code because it's establishing the commission and an ordinance, both of which are codified. But yes, that is something we could probably ask our CLG representative to help us do a training on.
I think she went over it a little in the last training, but I'm certain we could scroll it out on a screen and really read it line for line. No problem.
I'm seeing this in the background.
You just said it.
Not in the design review training, but and Commissioner Horn, thank you for being so patient.
Yeah, so I had two comments. One is perhaps Lauren, we could ask you to report back, and might just be even where you do it in the report section, nothing even verbal. It might even just be a written summary of like, here's what council asks for information on or reports to council, just so we have a little more understanding about what they're interested in or what they're asking about or things like that. And then I think the other thing training wise for me is just, I think, for me, just a little bit more about sort of the limits of our power and what we're, what are our sidebars and what can we really decide and not decide. And then a little bit more about the appeals process if someone doesn't agree with our decision and how that works.
Great, thank you. Other suggestions or requests? And of course, as you guys, if we're doing things and asking questions and you're like, I feel like they should know that, I mean, please suggest trainings for us if you think that we're getting rusty on items or misunderstanding items. And I know you're very good about correcting us as things come up, but we're happy to take suggestions from you guys as well. Within your bandwidth, of course.
Yeah, I feel last month I wasn't as swift on my feet as I would have liked to have been. Felicia. There was a moment where I was like, oh no, I've missed her. So thanks for your patience too.
And we could also add that the clerk's office is also happy to come back and do another training, specific to those sorts of things, like making motions and when to take public comment and how, and if there are not heritage preservation specific questions, but general board and commission questions.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Dominguez, and then Commissioner Hayes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the training that Ariana put on for us. And I'm still trying to figure out how it connects to us. How the city of Flagstaff, and of course her group, how we work together. I'm still trying to put the links together, and maybe it's just me, but I think that's what I'm looking for is how do we fit into this big picture? I mean, city council, I know are going to start get some heat because of the building that well, that I missed. Sorry, guys. And but I know there's going to be questions that are going to be asked, and I don't know how to answer them.
Commissioner Horn, did you want to add anything?
I guess part of my comment about just sort of understanding, the limits of our ability to make decisions or, influence things gets back to, I think, Commissioner Dominguez's comments about putting those pieces together about what we see and um our opinions or professional evaluations of those and just what we can really do within the limits of this commission.
I think Commissioner Horn makes a really good point. I ask myself that too, because when I look at in the code what the under 103030, what the Heritage Preservation Commission can do, it seems like there are things in there that we never do. Like we can recommend a property for landmark status. So, I mean, we've been talking about how these inventories are so old. And maybe we look at doing that or asking for boundary changes or like City Hall. I mean, when we first heard this, could we have asked for the property to be evaluated for a landmark status?
I will say with an individual property, you could. However, if it's one property, the owner will have to agree to it. So you could have asked for that to initiate the process. Same with El Pueblo and others we've talked about in the past, but because 51% of property owners need to agree, which in the case of a single property is the one owner, it would not move forward. But, for if you to a new district or something, that is definitely something in the council's purview. But that's where it gets a little complicated with an individual landmark. Just for clarification, you couldn't have designated this building as a landmark under the code unless the property owner agreed.
Could we have initiated the process, and could we have initiated the process at any time? Because by initiating the process, then it has to be reviewed, and therefore it cannot be demolished. So is that not something within our ability and our powers as a commission to be able to recommend that? Now, I understand that the property owner doesn't have to agree with that, but we can initiate the process, correct?
We might have to do a little digging on that one. I will say we're working, there's a group in the Southside neighborhood that wants to create an overlay. And to get the process going, they have to turn in the petition with the property owner signatures. So I assume that would be the case here. I mean, you could direct us, the city, to work on that, but it wouldn't actually get initiated. And this is the same of that case. Sarah and I have just been spending a lot of time digging through the code to map out the process for this group and specifically what they have to do. And essentially, it won't be initiated and trigger what you were talking about, that it has the temporary protections until they've turned in the completed application to us, which includes all of the property owner petitions. So, and we could get another legal opinion on that, but my understanding is no, you could not ask for it to be designated and then give it the protection of a designated property without the property owner, because it wouldn't technically be initiated.
I feel
That
like
might be another good one to add to a training.
Yeah, I
It's
feel like
just-
we're straying a bit far from the purpose of this item.
Yeah, but I
And
do
if
think
we
it
wanted
fits,
to
it fits Amy, Commissioner Horn's request of like the limits of what you can decide. Because sometimes when you read one sentence in the code, you don't see the 3 other places or the related state statute that might constrain us. And the code has very different ages, right? The portion of the code we use to designate the property on LaRue as part of the local register was written in 1972, and then some things were written in 1990s, and then some things were written in the mid 2000s. And the state legislature and ballot initiatives are going through it all that time. So it's not, you can't take a whole sentence out. We have to like actually do all the research, but be happy to go through some of that and say like, what's something you might read in the code and think, aha, we can do that. But then when you look deeper, there's actually more restrictions than you realize. Would be a very interesting topic for us to maybe work out. That might not be a September topic, but I think you've made a fascinating point that like it is hard as a person who's not reading the code every day, like you said, just doing a few hours a month to catch all that nuance. And so we could do some work to try and pull that together in a way that can make it digestible. I think that'd be a really good addition. So thank you.
I think that would be great. Then we can ask particular questions, especially if we go over the parts that have to do with consent approval, designation of landmark properties and historic overlays and everything to get an idea. Maybe we can just ask our questions there as we're going through it, because I look at like general provisions and it says, when the provisions of this division conflict with any other laws, codes, or regulations, and the provisions of this division shall govern, except for matters of life and safety. So, I mean, that sounds like we can pretty much do anything, right? I mean, so what is
Yeah.
the guidelines on that?
That's a bold overstatement of the code. We can't override state law or anything with our local government code. So
But it's A under 103030.
right. It means that within the confines of common law. So yeah, we still have to follow the supremacy clause of the Constitution. So those kinds of things. I mean, they're great, but they are definitely like in-depth discussions. So we can add it to the training list. This might be something we have to do over a couple of months. And as Lauren said, there's been 2 requests for October work session time with you. So maybe it'll be a September, November kind of schedule, like every other month, maybe for a little while.
Well, thinking about it this way, in the future, it could be future training videos, especially if we're being recorded.
So may I request that when you do that about looking at the code, that you include how people should know when to reference other sections? If they're not referenced in the language of whatever the people are looking at, how does anyone know to go to another section? Could you include that, please?
People get law degrees for some of this. I mean, really? I'm being facetious, but I'm also being honest.
No, you're not being facetious. It is true, but at the same time, the public have access to that code, and we want people to be happy citizens. And so you don't want to put a lot of work into something and then find out that there was part that you weren't directed to that you should have known about.
All right, any final discussion of this item? All right, then we will move on to reports. We have 3 approvals. Anything exciting to share?
Not particularly. As far as the standard approvals go. So the first 2 are the new signs and the downtown overlay. These are, the most common ones really that you see. So the first one is outside of the Railroad Edition Historic District. It's the Grand Canyon Chocolate that just went in on LaRue, new sign, but it's still in the overlay, so they still needed to meet the sign requirements, which they did there was the one condition of approval from our planning section. And then the 5 East Aspen Avenue was a sign change on a contributor to the Railroad Edition, but just swapping out a new business. But both pretty straightforward, meeting the design guidelines for the overlay for signs. And maybe the last one is a little interesting. We don't see solar panels very often, generally. So this is a solar panel installation on a roof in town site, a non-contributor to the district. And solar panels don't generally wouldn't, not, unless it's really probably just in town site or a future residential overlay, not going to really fall under the certificate process too often, just because it's pretty streamlined review for them, especially as they're, they could be removable. They're generally not affecting the roof. The roof is generally not original anyways, and similar to standard re-roofing. And you know, most of our guidelines are to support, you know, generally moving forward with solar energy. So this is an interesting one mostly. And I was looking through the records. There's really I only found 2 other approvals in town site for solar panels in the couple of years that I was looking, also on non-contributing properties. So it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, any questions or comments on any of these?
Why do you call that a non-contributing property? Are you talking about, it's listed in the National Register. The address is listed and it's in the overlay. So
It's
why is
not,
it
it's listed,
non-contributing?
it's in the boundaries of the district, but it is not a contributor to the district. The districts have contributing properties and non-contributing properties, and this is listed as a non-contributing property because of the previous unsympathetic alterations to the property.
It's listed in the National Register district as a non-contributing.
Correct.
Remember the advisory council put out something last year that about guidance and solar panels, and they were sort of saying they're reversible and sort of relaxing some of their stance in previous years.
Right. And there are some best practices, you know, if it had been a contributor trying to, I mean, it's hard with solar panels because they're dictated by the sun. But, you know, putting them on the face of the roof that would be less visible. This one, it's going to blend in pretty well. And again, it is a non-contributor, but you're correct. I think it's one of those things that things have relaxed over the years to encourage people to move in a more sustainable direction.
So eventually we probably will have one that's a contributor with a request for solar panels. I mean, it's just a matter of time.
If we were in Phoenix, I bet we definitely would have seen quite a few already.
All right, other questions or comments on these 3 approvals? All right, let's move on to miscellaneous items. Staff, what you got for us?
Well, I have a couple of things that I noted. First, you may have noticed that Commissioner Buckham is no longer here. She resigned from the commission. So we are recruiting for a new at-large member now. So I'm sure you remember from the last couple of times we've talked about this with appointments, but there is a commission application page on the website, and anyone can go fill it out and apply. It goes directly to the clerk's office. The clerk's office likes to have a few different applications on file to give to council to look at to appoint. So it's preferable to get multiple applications. Our understanding is there is at least one application already in the queue, but it would be great to get more. So spread the word. And this is an at-large. It doesn't have the specific requirements of the professional or the property owner. So just someone with a general interest in heritage preservation. And while we're talking about that, I also wanted to note that 3 additional commissioners have terms that are up on December 1st. And so that is Commissioner Hayes, Horn, and Westheimer. So just to be thinking for the future. So if you are interested in being reappointed, you will also need to reapply this fall. So sometime, you know, before December, if you're interested, go ahead and get your applications in. And the same is also true that the clerk's office and council will, even with reappointments, would still like to see multiple applications. So if you know of anybody else, well, and you may see advertising on city social media probably soon for our current opening because we need to get that filled. And then because we have 3 at once, I'm sure they'll put out something this fall as well. And did you want to add to that, Sarah?
Yeah, one more thing. The generally, I think the date for the 3 reappointments is December 1st, but they'd like to get that on an agenda before Thanksgiving. So when Lauren says fall, she really means please if you're planning to ask to be reappointed, then please do so in October. If you do not want to if you're not intending to be reappointed and you're going to finish out your appointment and once it's filled, just let us know because it helps us keep track of how many applications we actually need. Because we are discussing that. That's another behind the scenes thing. We're discussing that with the clerk. Like, do you have, she will expect us to have at least, because I think there's 2 professional seats, I think she'll expect us to have 3 professionals, at least 2, and one of those could be somebody who fills the at-large position if they're already in there. So we need to get a few people, and then at least 2 property owners. So we'll have to, so ask people, if they have an interest. I know that seems weird that like you're recruiting people to maybe fill your slot, but like that's just the preference of council is they don't like to do it unless we're in a urgent situation where we're having trouble getting quorums.
Anything else?
Yes, I also wanted to note that last week, Nancy and Sarah and I attended a board and commission staff liaison training. And there are a few things to note. You may have noticed we made some changes to the agenda. And well, the biggest one actually that you'll notice on the agenda is we were asked to retitle number 4 from, I believe it was public comment before, to open call to the public. And that's some partly standardization to make sure all boards and commissions are using the proper terminology and standardization between all of the different city agenda types. So that is there. There's a minor note for the chair that it's actually not necessary for the minutes to be physically signed. And so so July will hopefully be the last one that actually needs to be signed. And we can remove the signature box moving forward. So just so you know that, and future minutes, that's going to be removed. And then the biggest thing to note, and I will resend the manual out after this meeting, but they pointed out to us that we should not be calling for abstention votes, and that is in the board and commission manual, and it specifically says, essentially there are no abstentions. If you have a conflict of interest, you state that before the item, and then that is recorded as an abstention, but otherwise you are expected to vote. And if you were to attempt to abstain without a conflict of interest, that counts as a vote in the affirmative. So I've also let Chairdale know that we shouldn't be asking for abstention votes when she is calling for votes. And if you have any specific questions, again, I'll send that out in the manual, which actually this is part of Flagstaff City Charter that language comes from. So that's referenced in the manual. So just a heads up on that change as well. Anything else either of you want to throw out from the training? I think those were the biggest notes. I think other commissions have more to clean up than we did. So,
Yeah, we were doing pretty well.
yeah.
I think that the last one is a great example of how we read the board and commission manual, but we didn't think to look at the charter. That's like how we have to like onion layer our own understanding of some of these regulations. So we were doing something we thought matched the manual, but the manual and the charter had a conflict, and the charter is what overrules. So that was a good, we all learned something new this week. In fact, someone announced that. They go, well, that's something I didn't know before in the middle of the commission training. And it's someone who's been a commission liaison for years. So just, it's all ongoing learning for us too. I think the other thing I'd want to ask, I know we discussed that Commissioner Buckham has stepped off the commission. Often we offer like a farewell lunch for people if they're interested and stepped off the commission. Is that a tradition you would like us to reach out and continue to do?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Buckham was on the commission for, I don't know I've forgotten how time works with COVID, but at least like a year or two. So
She had been reappointed in January for a second term. So
at least 3 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we'll reach out to her and see if she's interested. I think we used to also offer like a welcome like lunch where we would all go out and just meet and greet, but I think we forgot to do that for Commissioner Dominguez. So if you would love to go out to lunch and have us advertise a quorum so that you can meet in a different setting and of course not discuss commission business, we'd be happy to schedule that as well. So But I've always tried to kind of do that because you guys are here sometimes making tense decisions, and it's good for you to have time to actually sit and get to know each other as opposed to people who have a plaque in front of you. Um, so anyways, but I think we just got busy because we were transitioning this year ourselves on the staff side. So apologies for that, but happy to offer again. So let me know if you're interested after the meetings.
I'm interested. It'd be nice to say goodbye and farewell and thank you, and also welcome when we have a new commission member join us. So.
Yeah, I agree. This is Commissioner Horn. I joined when everything was still really remote and it was a little rough to just kind of jump right in and not really know anybody or what was happening. So I would fully support both of those lunches.
Okay. Or the combined, whatever you guys want. We'll figure it out.
All right, anything else from you all at the?
Just throw out a couple other project things. One, I vaguely referenced a potential new historic overlay zone before. So just following up on that, it's a small neighborhood group within the Southside Historic District. So not the entire district, a smaller group of them, and they've submitted design standards to us for review, which we have reviewed, commented on, helped them with, moving that up for legal review now. But they still have a long road ahead of them before it'll actually get to the commission, and that would, be the neighborhood meeting, having to go out and get all of those 51% minimum signatures, those sorts of things. So you probably won't see it till next summer. So just a heads up on that. But it's exciting to have another overlay in the works and in a neighborhood that doesn't have one. So there's one property that is an individual landmark, or two maybe in this area, but yeah, so that's an exciting update. And then since we've been talking a little bit referencing the 19 West Birch project, I was looking at the timeline today, and I know we'll talk more about what concept plan and site plan and all these development review things mean, but I was looking at that schedule, and I don't expect it to come back to the commission. I don't think it's possible to come back before November, and that would be at the fastest possible timeline. So just an update there, that I don't think that they will be ready with the design before that's the earliest that it could come back for a certificate of appropriateness. So just letting you know that. But we are, in the meantime, following up with the Indigenous Commission on developing mitigation, and Cornerstone is also working. They've made the changes to the phase 1, working on the phase 2. Sarah met with the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff, and I went to the last Indigenous Commission meeting, and I'm going to go back with Caitlin Stewart of Cornerstone to the September meeting. So we'll have more to report back to you about developing mitigation at the next meeting.
Commissioner Dominguez and then Commissioner Hayes.
Lauren, you caught my attention when you said the overlay.
Yes.
Plaza Vieja tried to do that, and we got surprised with a 75%.
And
So there's a 51 and there's a 51% and a 75%.
Correct. And
so
they're different types of overlays. So the one in the Heritage Preservation Code is a historic overlay zone, which requires, I believe, both 51% of the properties have to be historic properties and 51% of the owners have to agree to be in the overlay zone. But the La Plaza Vieja was looking at a character overlay, which is a different part of code, does have different requirements, and is a little bit of a steeper hill with having to get that 75% threshold.
Yeah, that was a surprise for us. I mean, 75% of a neighborhood, undoable.
Commissioner Hayes.
I no longer have the same question, but that now just raises more questions. So I'm going to have to look that character overlay up because I wasn't aware of that.
More trainings for us, possibly. Anything else from staff? Anything from commission members? Commissioner Westheimer?
Speaking of Abby, didn't she work on the South Side over National Register District? Is that correct? Was that to finish it, or to reassess it?
To reassess it, because it is already listed as a district. That was listed in 2010, so it was an update project, which is still ongoing. The original update that Abby worked on, I believe when she was the Heritage Preservation aide, it was parts of it were submitted to SHPO. There's a lot to fix, and so it is not. It's one of those ongoing projects. And then I have found quite a lot more that needs to be updated that wasn't included in the original scope. And as time goes on too, of course, the 50-year mark keeps moving. So more buildings need to be inventoried and need to be included. And so, yeah, so that is still ongoing. That is the inventory update that we currently have on our radar. But it has, I will say, other things, particularly the Mayhicks project, have pushed it farther off the radar, but it is still there. And we did utilize a CLG grant for part of that, for updating the historic context. And so that is.
Yeah, I think so. The way that project started, because you guys I know are all interested in how inventories are restarted in Flagstaff, is in 2020 we got a CLG grant to do a historic context for the East Flagstaff. There's never been one done on East Flagstaff. But COVID happened and we did not feel that we could carry out the interviews and the oral history work needed to create a historic context for an area that has that little historic documentation with it. And so we paused because we just couldn't bring ourselves to meet with elders or, in that kind of a health environment, in a public health emergency like that. So we talked to SHPO, and it was Eric Vondi at the time, and we reassigned the money to update the historic context for Southside for the civil rights era specifically, because at the time there were a lot more grants coming out for civil rights era buildings, and we wanted to get our buildings included. And then but it was just hard. I think we just had a hard start because we were trying to take a grant that wasn't going to work and make something work while we were in COVID. And then we've since then just found that things are evolving and we haven't been able to keep up. So that's an example like that inventory alone and the context we are still working on 5 years after we initiated the project. And the $10,000 we got helped, but did not cover our full costs. We've definitely been continuing to do it as staff work allows, just to give you an idea of the pace we're able to keep with the staffing we have and a small budget. So.
Other items from commissioners? Oh, yes, Commissioner Westheimer.
I have one more, thank you. I happened to be going down North LaRue the other day and a house is missing and it never came before this commission and I want to know what's going on. So it's 624 North LaRue. It's gone, bye. It's definitely historic and it's in a district.
It is also a non-contributor to the district, so that's important to note. Again, due to inappropriate alterations. So, but it was reported last week as a building violation. It was demolished without a permit. They had approved plans to do an interior remodel with an addition, and not a complete demolition. And it was reported by a neighbor, and they are now rectifying that. So essentially, it will be going through some of those reviews now. I have in my queue the demolition permit to review. And then eventually they're going to have to completely redo all of their plans because their plans were for a remodel, and this is going to be a completely, top to bottom new build. So they have a stop work order until they rectify the situation is where it's at now.
Is there a penalty?
Similar to the property that a certain commissioner reported to us a few months ago, there is a financial penalty in that I believe that the permit fees are doubled when you do something in violation. Then you now have to pay double the fee, and the cost of the permit isn't a set fee. It's based on believe the size of the lot or the size of the building for demolition. So I don't know exactly what it will be, but there is that. And then the other things, like I mentioned, I'm not sure, couldn't explain to you what the rationale or the plans were for doing this. But, essentially now they're going to have to pay the architect to do double the work. And they have a stop work order, so they'd mobilize their contractor, and now they're dead in the water. So they're going to have some other financial setbacks as well, that aren't, well, sort of instituted by the city in that we issued the stop work order. But the fee, I think, is really just the paying the fine of the double permit.
Well, that East Birch property that they wanted to do the second story, that was a non-contributing. He had to do a cultural resource study.
That's not in the district. So that had never been evaluated before because it's not in a district, and that's why he had to do a study.
You explain that better, please?
That house at 418 East Birch is not in a historic district and had never been evaluated before. So it's not that it's a non-contributor to the district, it's completely outside the district boundaries and had never been evaluated before. And in that case, when we don't have any records on the building, we do require a cultural resource study because they can't go through the certificate process like the ones you saw earlier today for their remodel plans. They have to follow the cultural resource study process, which required them to do this study and analyze the effects of their proposed work in the study. So this house has a previous eligibility determination on it, but it's a non-contributor because of the past inappropriate additions. It doesn't retain historic integrity to be contributing to the district. So it's a different situation as this one, but still, it was still demolished without a permit is the bottom line. And that was reported to our planner of the day who reported it to me. And I went out there personally and alerted building safety. And we had a stop work order issued by the end of the day. So.
Commissioner Dominguez?
Lauren, I was going to ask this question now.
Yeah.
So are we giving the property owner an incentive? And the reason I'm saying this, so it costs $100 versus $50 for a permit. So they can knock down a building. And I'm talking about the house at 300 South Park, which was original workforce housing in the Plaza Vieja neighborhood. There was 3 of them. One burnt down with a gentleman inside of it. The other one was Mr. McElroy's, and then the one that we just lost. 3 identical buildings. So they get slapped on the hand and they do whatever they want to. Where's the I guess the punitive damages so they can, and I'm going to go into history because we had a gentleman here that cut down a bunch of trees, paid $10,000, and he sold it for $10 million. Where's the justification there? I mean, here we are trying to preserve old buildings, and whether they're in the district or not in a district, seems like we're going backwards.
And I know that's frustrating. And hopefully that specific house that I required, the one you're referencing on South Park, that required a cultural resource study for the unauthorized demolition. I'm still waiting on it, but hopefully that'll actually be on the next agenda. Hasn't been submitted yet, so they've got to submit by next Tuesday at noon to get on the agenda. But so hopefully you will actually see that next month, and then also be discussion if additional mitigation's needed.
I would say hold up their certificate of occupancy, and I'll
We
bet
are.
you'll get it real quick.
Yeah, no, in that case, what the building inspector and I decided to do was they cannot have final inspection of their project and they cannot have a certificate of occupancy until all the heritage preservation code needs are met. So that is what's happening. And because their consultant hasn't been timely in submitting the study, it is in this case actually going to hold them up. They would be able to apply for final inspection, and this is going to hold up their process because of this outstanding requirement.
I'd just like to say something on the Plaza Vieja neighborhood's got a Facebook site, and you'd be surprised how many people remember old things. Everybody I mean, here's David Gonzalez, the U.S. Marshal for the state of Arizona, asking us, have you got a picture of the old store that was in Plaza Vieja? We finally found one, and it's posted on Facebook, so you can see Chavez Market. It all depended on who owned it that month or that week. It was Lupita's Market, it was Cedillo's Market, but we lost it. We lost that little market. So, I mean, it's just that historical, you know, preservation of, eh, we couldn't even find a picture of it. Luckily, somebody took a picture in front of it and we were able to crop it out. And now we have a picture of Chavez Market on Tombstone Avenue. So this is what I guess irks me a little bit, is that people are just going and knocking down. Yeah, they might be old shacks, but they were neat old shacks. It's just like the May House. Is it the May House?
Yeah, the May Hicks Curtis house.
I mean, thank God you guys preserved that. I mean, it's on wheels right now. It's a mobile home, but that's okay. We still have it.
True.
Where, I mean, otherwise it'd be gone. It'd be in the landfill. Unreal.
I can't explain the rationale for any of those of what would be better. I mean, in this case, the one on LaRue, they started following the city process, which opens them up for city inspections, and clearly it was going to get caught. So, and then they were going to have to double everything. So I don't know what the benefit of trying to do it that way was. You know,
I can tell you what the benefit is. They paid $950,000 for it. The entitlements have been increased, and now they can probably build 2 houses or a duplex or whatever and make a ton of money. And that's why we're going to lose our historic properties, is because the values and the entitlements are encouraging people to replace our history.
Other items from commission members?
I'll just add that the people who bought 624 North LaRue last year, they live in the valley.
Anything else? All right, seeing we have no more miscellaneous items, I at 5:29 p.m. on August 20th, 2025, declare this meeting of the Flagstaff Heritage Preservation meeting adjourned. Thank you all.